Anyway, all right, let's watch this. How Dramedies broke the Emmy Awards.
Great time to look back at all of our favorite films, shows, and performances of the last year. But every time the Emmy Awards roll around and nominations are announced, there's so much confusion about the seemingly random categories that some shows and actors are slotted into. So what's really going on here?
They don't want honest. They want entertainment.
Let's take a closer look at the full Emmy process and the awards culture that drives it to figure out what's really behind category fraud, and if there's anything that can be done to fix it. It's no big secret that pretty much everyone in Hollywood wants not only the fame and fortune that can come with their jobs, but also the award recognition.
Yeah. It's funny because I did cover that story. I did cover that one, but
award season has long been rife with questionable choices and slightly shady attempts to boost one's profile. But it's not always just about puffing up egos.
It was funny.
Winning a coveted award can help bring new life to an acting career, help a filmmaker secure their next job, or keep a show on the air for another season. So it's not really a surprise then that the people involved are willing to do pretty much whatever.
You guys want to know what's fucking crazy? Sandra Oh, who has been doing TV forever and has been on a number of notable shows and given amazing performances. She won her first Emmy for Quiz Lady, which I'm not even kidding you, I've never fucking heard of. And I'm sure some of you have heard of it. This is just me being like, I saw the announcement that Sandra Oh won the Emmy at the Creative Emmys a couple nights ago, and I went, I'm sorry, what is Quiz Lady? I've never even heard of this. It's her show. It's a show with Awkwafina, or no, it's a movie with Awkwafina. It's a movie with Awkwafina, and that is what got her Quiz Lady, Sandra Oh. Yeah. That's where she got her first Emmy, which is wild. Yeah, so crazy that Sandra Oh had never won an Emmy up until that point, and that it's for something that I personally had not heard of. Yeah. Anyway, congratulations to Sandra Oh for finally winning an Emmy. Are we going to talk about Awkwafina finally? No. Another day passes without me dedicating an entire stream to Awkwafina. We'd know about it if you kept up on the needed Awkwafina coverage, I guess. Yeah, but I don't.
Whatever it takes to secure a win.
Huh. So it's for TV?
Some people and companies are so desperate to win those little statues that they'll go to some really wild lengths, like ESPN submitting fake names into Emmy categories, and then when they won, getting the fake name taken off of the trophies and the names of their real on-air personnel put on so that they could pretend that they won, a scheme that they kept up for over a decade. And this is part of a larger trend that seems particularly noticeable at the Emmy Awards: category fraud. Pirates! So-called category fraud works slightly differently between the acting and show categories, but the basic function is the same. Unlike with other award shows, where which category someone or a production is slotted into is based on specific facts, say the length of time that someone is on screen, or quite specific genre categories, for example, Emmy submissions are much more vibes-based. The producers, actors, and others involved in the show can essentially submit for whatever category they choose, which means...
So that's the thing, is a lot of people want to blame the Emmys, but it's not the Emmys that submits the performers or shows for certain categories. It's the studios or producers who submit them. And one major the major reason why The Bear has been submitted as a comedy is because they knew that going up against heavyweights in the in the drama category, such as Succession, would have caused it to either not win as many awards or maybe not win any awards. And so because when there are when there is one show that is just dominating year after year in its category, producers will go, okay, we got to do some finagling here because otherwise we're going up against the heavyweight champion.
Everyone tends to go for the one they think they'll be able to win.
But that's how you
even if
get
it doesn't necessarily
that's how you get The Bear as a comedy.
match up with the actual role or show itself. For the acting awards, this can lead to actors who were clearly major parts of their shows, and sometimes literally main characters, to submit themselves as supporting. This, in theory, ups their chances for a win since they will, compared to the other actually supporting roles in the category, have had a lot more screen time to prove their award worthiness. Sometimes the actors make this choice themselves, but often it's part of a larger strategy on the part of the producers to attempt to game the system, to get as many.
So this is why if you keep up with award stuff, and you will often see controversy or debate over the supporting versus lead roles. This goes for television and film. And sometimes the gambit pays off, right? You submit an actor in supporting category, even though they really should be in the lead category, and they end up winning, whereas they probably wouldn't have won if they were submitted in lead. But sometimes it doesn't work out, and that's where you get the like, ooh, so-and-so should never have been in the supporting category, should have been in lead. Or sometimes so-and-so should not have been in lead because they were not a lead and should instead have been in supporting, and then they would have had a higher likelihood of winning. If the actor decides, is their coworker pissed? I mean, that's like a subjective question that I can't answer. Where, sure, I mean, I'm sure there are instances of an actor, you know, from a show wanting to be submitted in the supporting category, which makes it more difficult for one of their co-stars who's also in the same category. Like, I'm sure there have been instances where that's happened. I can't, top of mind, think of anything notable where it was like somebody went public with their feelings towards a fellow actor, a castmate doing something like that. I'll forever be sad. Better Call Saul and Rhea Seehorn did not submit under comedy. They'd have gotten some deserve. Right, and so that's the other thing too, is you look at shows that completely were snubbed, like Better Call Saul and the actress Rhea Seehorn, and you wonder, like, okay, if they had done the bear move, because you can say that Better Call Saul is as much of a comedy as the bear is, but if they had pulled the bear move, would there have been, you know, would they have had a higher chance? I think yes. And would that possibly have led to winning awards?
Any nominations and wins for their show as possible.
You enjoy the game.
I do. Last thing I expected.
And you play it well.
I like to keep playing it.
Take Peter Dinklage, who was clearly a main character in Game of Thrones Ensemble, getting submitted as supporting every year. Or when Shailene Woodley was submitted as supporting for the first season of Big Little Lies, even though her character was functionally a, or possibly even the, main character for that season.
You guys are just right. You're exactly right. And for some reason that makes me feel wrong, I guess.
This can also happen with supporting actors submitting for guest nominations,
Glee.
which are supposed to be for roles that have very little screen time, say an episode or two, but make a big impact. For example, Joe Morton, who played Olivia's father on Scandal, was submitted as a guest star even though he was in nearly every single episode of that season. There are also other weird quirks of the industry that can lead to actors having to do this kind of category fraud, even if it isn't something they necessarily want. Take Rose Byrne having to submit herself as supporting for Damages, even though she was clearly a co-lead, just because, allegedly, Glenn Close had put it in her contract that only she was allowed to be submitted as lead for awards. Or sometimes an ensemble cast will decide that, because they're all equally integral to the show, they'll all submit as supporting to keep there from being a split where everyone is doing equal work, but some get to be lead and others supporting, as we saw with Modern Family and the earlier seasons of Friends.
Family is family, whether it's the one you start out with, the one that you end up with, or the family that you gain along the way.
This is
Maybe it's a hot take and I'm biased as a coach, but I think it should be an unspoken or spoken rule that when a show deliberately and obviously misrepresents their genre to dodge competitions at an award show, it should be policy to simply not nominate nor award them anything. Yeah, I mean, this is the raging debate, which I say in quotations because it's, people online debating it. But this is the debate over The Bear, where, people are upset about The Bear going up against a show like Abbott Elementary, which is very clearly cut and dry a comedy and is most likely going to win comedy series over Abbott Elementary. And there's this feeling of cheating, right? Like, okay, best comedy series going to a show that is not, when you look at all the other nominees in that category is not a comedy, especially compared to those shows. And how The Bear is now, I think the statistic was after the last round of Emmy nominations, The Bear is the most Emmy nominated comedy of all time, and it beat out, it was either Emmy nominated comedy of all time or Emmy received the most Emmy nominations in 1 year, beating out 30 Rock. And so then it reignited the Bear's not a comedy. Josh, you watched a 4-hour video about soap operas, the daytime Emmys, and Desperate Housewives. You know what? That actually sounds very interesting to me. Not for you, that isn't the problem. That's the game. They should at least be in the category they're supposed to. Well, that is the game, but that is also the problem, right? Of being in, like, the game is submitting yourself in a category that you really don't belong in to win the game of competition.
Definitely a nice thought in theory, but it can, and often does, lead to those leads from hit shows dominating the supporting categories, and in turn pushing out so many actually supporting roles. Odd category choices that go in the other direction, where an actor is submitted for a category that would traditionally have more screen time, say a supporting role going for a lead, is generally not seen as category fraud because they're essentially putting themselves at a disadvantage by going up against people who had much more screen time to convince the voting body that they deserve to be rewarded. But of course, the biggest confusion around category fraud every year usually has to do with the genres shows are placed under. Every year when award season comes around now, there's a slew of people asking, wait, The Bear is a comedy? Sure, it has funny moments, but on the whole, it's a pretty dramatic, stressful show.
Carmen, I need you to check the Branzino.
I feel like that was a shock, Carmen.
I'm saying, this is why I didn't want to come home. This is why.
You.
What?
So, how did it end up in the comedy category? Just like with the acting awards, show producers are able to submit their shows for pretty much whatever categories they want. After complaints following the 2015 Emmys, the Academy actually switched up their rules a bit because of all of the ruffled feathers about the various category shenanigans, particularly in the Comedy Award, which saw Netflix moving Orange is the New Black and Showtime moving Shameless into the category. To try to combat this,
and I think what's difficult is that dramas have comedy, right? You must. You must. I mean, I guess we could identify some shows that really feel like they have no comedy whatsoever, but often it's comedy that results from it's resulting from a dramatic situation where the tension is so great that it becomes comedic almost. And it's why we have the label of dramedy, right? And there's a lot of people who argue that to fix this problem of dramas or comedies shows that are much more of a drama with comedic moments, to fix this issue, create a dramedy category. Just have one more category, because like a show such as Succession was in the drama category of the Emmys, and comedy wise, like the amount of comedy, I would say there's even more in Succession than there is in The Bear.
instituted a rule that capped comedy submissions at 30 minutes, so all hour-long shows had to go back to drama. Though producers do still have the option to ask for a review to allow their longer show to compete in the comedy category if they want. But TV has changed so much, even in just the past few years, with the takeover of
I think it's hard to find a show without any comedy except maybe Real Time with Bill Maher. Oh my God. That's a good one.
streaming, shows aren't as beholden to the old school runtimes and slot lengths, because traditionally it was pretty standard that comedies would fit half-hour slots, while dramas would get a full hour. Shows are so much more willing and able to bend and mix genres now, too. So many of the most beloved shows of recent years aren't straight comedies or dramas, they're both.
All we have to do is just stay calm and make sure we don't get up.
Sydney!
What was that?
I fell through a wall. Good morning.
Damn, you got strong.
And this is how we ended up with shows like The Bear and Barry, which can get really dark but are only around half an hour per episode, being submitted as comedies.
There's some days you don't think you deserve to live, and the only thing that'll make you forget is by being someone else.
While shows like Succession and The Curse, which have a pretty equal mix of drama and humor to those shows, but have hour-long episodes, were submitted as dramas.
I want them!
It's not really about the content of the shows themselves, just the runtimes and categories that the show's producers think they'll most easily be able to win.
Dad, why?
Why? Because it works. I f***ing win.
One big problem people do have with the Dramedies taking over the comedy category is that they often keep actual comedies from getting nominations or wins in the category, since those Dramedies are better awards bait. And so it can at times feel like we've kind of just got two drama categories. While the Dramedies rack up awards, hit comedies like The Good Place, Parks and Rec, New Girl, Superstore, and more never won an Emmy.
This is the bad place.
Shows like The Bear certainly do deserve to be rewarded. It's really just a signal that the award show probably needs to make some larger changes to keep up with the times. While obviously those changes in 2015 didn't fix everything, they did at least start the ball rolling in the right direction. The number of nominees in both the comedy and drama categories were increased from 5 to 7 to attempt to give more shows a chance in both categories. Though, given how prominent it's become as a genre, it might just be time to give Dramedies their own separate category. And while they did institute a limit on who is allowed to submit for guest star, now it's capped at having appeared in 50% of a season or less. They could still make some improvements in the main acting categories to help level the playing field and stop lead actors from taking spots from actual supporting roles. But at the end of the day, there's no way to fix every single category. There's always going to be some nomination that people don't agree with, or something that gets snubbed. But that doesn't mean it's not worth it to at least try to make some improvements where possible. Award shows have come to feel less and less relevant in a world where we're constantly connected to the entertainment industry on a regular basis. There's no
How did Better Call Saul never win an Emmy? Well, that is because Better Call Saul had, which is an incredible show and deserved wins. Better Call Saul had very bad timing in that it ran at the same time as Game of Thrones and Succession, which both dominated in the categories that Better Call Saul was nominated in. So we watched that compilation of Bob Odenkirk being nominated 6 times and then losing every Emmy, and his last season of Better Call Saul was the last opportunity, but unfortunately he did not win. But yeah, this is what happens sometimes is you have it's a show that the timing is unfortunate that it runs as the same time as a show that just dominates year after year, and then if that show ends, oh, here comes a new one. It's like, God damn it, here we go again. If the show doesn't win early in the season, so sometimes shows that don't pick up wins in the first or second season, like voters then may lose interest. It's something where the show kind of can fall out of favor, because you have to keep in mind that people who vote in award shows, 1, they don't watch everything. 2, most of what they're watching is what's really popular and what people online are talking about. And so this is another big problem with an award show like the Emmys, is how, yes, they've tried to make changes in categories to allow more, you know, performers who should be nominated to be nominated, and more shows to get recognition. But when it comes to winning, the same shows win over and over again. And that's why sometimes these award shows aren't that interesting, because you already know what's going to dominate. And especially when it's a show that has dominated year after year. So what you're saying is the Emmys are vibes based. Yes. Yes, indeed. I mean, this is a problem with awards voters, is that they do not watch everything or most things, and are also dictated by like the same popular shows and same conversations that are being had online, right? It's like Succession was a show that every single Sunday you could expect Twitter to be abuzz with talk about Succession, and same with Game of Thrones, same with House of Dragons, shows like that. Similar things happen with the Grammys. Yes, it's award shows in general. Often, you know, we say award shows award what's popular and not necessarily what's best. It's not to say that what's popular is not always what's best, but I guess it's more so that like awarding what's popular means you are missing out on shows that could be or should be popular, but just haven't gotten the attention on them.
Need to wait all year to find out what was the best of the best, because we're all always discussing it and sometimes fighting about it online throughout the year. There's always something new premiering, and there just seems
also,
to be...
Why do you think you see so much marketing in the lead up to award season? You will see Netflix putting up, spending tons of money on billboards, on all sorts of advertisements of their shows. And then if they have been nominated for a show, they advertise like 6 Emmy awards, blah blah blah.
There's so much talent everywhere that often isn't getting rewarded.
Twice as good.
Twice as good as them to get half of what they have.
And so the category fraud problem on top of all of that certainly isn't helping the Emmy Awards. But that doesn't mean all is lost. The Emmys could work on updating their categories, inviting more people, and a more diverse group of people at that, into the voting body so that we don't end up with the same handful of nominees and winners year after year after year, and updating the format of the show itself to fix the awkward pacing. But that doesn't mean that they don't still have their place, if they're willing to adapt at least. It's great to see people who are really good at their jobs finally getting their moment of recognition in such a big way. The Emmy Awards have never been and will never be perfect, but they could regain some of their prestige and wider public interest by updating themselves for our modern day, and making sure everyone that's putting in the work in Hollywood at least has a shot at getting recognized. Let us know, what kinds of changes would you like to see made to the Emmys going forward? And who are some people that you think would make for great host?
Let us know. Here's probably my hottest take for tomorrow's ceremony is I think Io is going to win for The Bear. And you know I love Io and I love Sid's character. I don't think she should win. I don't think she should get Best Lead Actress in a Comedy. I think with all my heart and soul it should go to Jean Smart in Hacks. And talk about a perfect role to win Best Lead Actress in a Comedy. Jean Smart, who plays an aging stand-up comedian, you know, and who is having a comeback, right? And it's one of her best roles ever. She was literally made for that role, and that's the type of role that should win Best Actress in a Comedy Series over a role like Sid in The Bear, even though I love Io and I think she's great. Okay. Anyway,